The Wuthering Waves 2.8 livestream has come and gone, and it has created a very strange split in the community. On one hand, you have a large group of players calling this a massive W patch, and if you just look at what was actually in the broadcast, you can absolutely see why. But on the other hand, you have a lot of players, a very loud group, who are, let's just say, underwhelmed. Even the content creators calling it a boring patch. So how can both of these things be true at the same time? How can one of the most technically impressive patches Kuro has ever shown also be one of the most controversial? That is the contradiction we're going to look at today, but before we get into that, if you appreciate this kind of breakdown, a like on the video and subscribing to the channel is a huge help, and it lets me know that you want to see more. Alright, to understand the conflict, we have to be fair and start with what was actually in the broadcast, because on paper, this was a massive success. If you just look at the 2.8 broadcast objectively, it was a massive W for the players. It was packed with some of the most highly requested features and fixes that the community has been asking for since launch. The core of this, the part that got everyone nodding, was the quality of life. And the word changes is almost an understatement. This was more of a flex from the developers. First, you have the one-click echo absorption, a simple, obvious fix. Instead of running around in circles, tapping your absorb key on your every single drop, you just absorb them all at once. This finally addresses one of the biggest, most annoying parts of the daily farming loop. A clear win. But the bigger deal was the new material completion UI. This is that flex I was talking about. It shows a high level of technical skill. They took one of the most complex and annoying parts of the game, grinding for materials, and streamlined it into a single elegant interface. It shows you what you're missing, it lets you craft it, and it directs you where to get it, all from one screen. It is genuinely impressive, and a lot of other games could learn from this. Wink wink. And then they added in-game echo build recommendations. This is a huge win for the casual player base, the people who don't live on guide websites or watch theory crafters. The game now shows you the top 3 main echoes that actual real players are using. It means you can finally build a character with some confidence. You're no longer just guessing. Beyond just the UI, they are finally overhauling the negative status system. I think this is a significant and positive change. The new adjustments, Havoc Bane, Fusion Burst, and the others look like they will add a much needed layer to the core combat system, which is a great sign. And on top of these fixes, the production value was high. This was a full content drop. You have the new 5-star 𝗖cie, who has what the community is calling absolute cinema gacha animations. And of course, the highly marketable scissors that turn into a giant chainsaw. That is an easy sell. Now there is the quiet observation that, well, she looks a bit like emo 𝗶𝗵𝗵, a darker haired PB, which isn't a bad thing, and the attack animations definitely look like it came from PGR. In my opinion, she looks the most PGR out of all of the Wuthering Waves characters, and then she references some of Nanami's attacks, so there's that. This is a part of a larger trend of just high quality character design. It has gotten to the point where I see people saying, I can't skip a goddamn character, and you can see why. This also includes the new 4-star Wuthering. The hype for her is massive. She is a fan favorite and the first new 4-star in a very long time. Her animations alone have people talking. The Naruto hand signs, the railgun coin flip. I mean, look at it side by side. She is literally an anime character. The gameplay quality honestly looks like a 5-star. There is some concern that her kit isn't a negative status user, which feels like a missed opportunity given the new rework, but she isn't out yet, so we will have to wait and see if she is viable in the meta or not. You also have the new region, Honami City, with a strong aesthetic and its new mascot, the Namipon. And to top it all off, a new deluxe skin for Zani. Now for me, the skin is just alright. Zani herself is obviously great, don't get me wrong, right? Zani is always gonna be pretty and beautiful, but the outfits, I could probably buy a similar sweater in real life for less. A lot of their promotional collab for Zani honestly looks better. And this brings up a bigger issue actually, the lack of skins in general. We see Kuro come up with all of these unique, amazing designs for their characters in their promo arts, and collabs. But in game, we're getting maybe one playable skin every 3 patches. That feels shabby. It feels complacent. They can clearly do more, and they should. Kuro, let me spend money on your game, gang. So you look at all of that together, massive quality of life, new characters, a new map, a new skin, if you have money. On paper, this is a developer that is clearly aggressively listening to its players. But that is not what happened. The community reaction was anything but unified. In fact, it was deeply fractured. So why? You have all of this good stuff, a clear W patch. Why did the conversation immediately split? It split because of 2 key things that weren't in the broadcast. This is where the entire discourse pivoted. It stopped being about what was present and became about what was missing. The first and most obvious omission was the 3.0 teaser. There was this community-wide unspoken agreement that we would get a one more thing moment at the end of the stream. A little glimpse of the next major region. But the stream finished, and then it was just the mascot dancing. I mean, it was cute, but you know, we are getting nothing. You could feel the air go out of the room. A lot of the most invested players, the people who actually watch these streams, well, felt like they were blue-balled. And this is quite simply a failure of hype management. It doesn't matter how good the 2.8 content is if you fail to build excitement for the future. The present patch instantly feels like filler, even though it's not, and it just deflates the entire experience. But the 3.0 teaser was only about hype. The second omission was the one that felt personal, because it was about player trust. And this, of course, was the Wuthering banner. Let's be very clear about the context here, right? Wuthering is a fan favorite character, and more importantly, she is the first new 4-star character the game has had in a very, very long time. This was a moment for Kuro to score an easy win, to reward the community. Instead, they put her on the second half rerun banners, not with the new 5-star 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗆𝗵𝗁. The reaction to this went beyond disappointment. It was anger. The words being used were scummy, predatory, and of course, war crime. Okay, that's a little bit pushing it, but you know, it's like typical internet language in 2025. But the interpretation was universal. Players felt that Kuro was using their most anticipated 4-star as bait, that they were intentionally placing her on older, less desirable banners to incentivize, or to put it more simply, to force people to spend their polls on banners they didn't really want. And now, to be fair, there are counter arguments. People rightly point out, you can just buy her in the coral shop for free if you have been saving your corals, right? And others have the more cynical business take. Business-wise, it makes sense. It incentivizes people polling on the second half. But that's the thing. Most players aren't shareholders. It just feels bad. It felt like a punishment, not a celebration. So right there, you have the fracture point. You have a developer delivering a technically brilliant patch while simultaneously fumbling its marketing and monetization. And that is why the community splits. It is the core of the issue. People weren't really having one single argument. They were having like numerous. And this is where it gets complicated. To really understand the reaction, you have to see that the community was having numerous separate arguments at the same time, all under this big banner of, is 2.8 good or bad? And they were all talking past each other. The reason is that everyone was judging Kuro on completely different things. They were all using a different definition for what developer competence even means. First, you have Conversation A. This is the competence is a technical skill group. These are the quality of life champions. For them, this patch was a 10 out of 10. They see that the new material UI, they see the one-click echo absorption, they see the high polish animations, and to them, that is the only proof of competence that matters. In their eyes, Kuro is the most dedicated developer because they are listening to feedback and executing on complex programming fixes. They are looking at the patch and they are praising the programmers. And then, completely separate from that, you have Conversation B. This is the competence is hype and generosity group. These are the critics. This group doesn't really care how cool the new UI is. They are judging the patch purely by its marketing and its monetization, how much money they are being asked to spend, and how excited they are for the future. And to them, this patch was a complete failure. Why? Because there was no 3.0 teaser. That's bad marketing. And there was that war crime banner placements for bullying. That is scummy monetization. So while the first group is praising the programmers, the second group is criticizing the business and marketing teams. They are not even in the same conversation. And then you have the third group, Conversation C. This is the competence is content balance. These are the analysts, the content creators, the long-term players, the people looking at the overall health of the game. This group is the most nuanced. They are looking at the shades of gray. They are happy that the combat events are back. They have been asking for that, but they are also worried. They are concerned that Kuro is just lurching from one extreme to the other. They went from all casual events in the last patch, which everyone called dry, to all combat events in this one because everyone everyone was starved, I guess. They are worried that Kuro still hasn't found a stable identity for the game. So this group isn't focused on the programmers or the business team. They are critiquing the game director. They are asking, what is the long-term plan? But let's focus on that idea for a moment, because it is probably the most important signal in all of this for the game's future. If you remember, the context for this is that the last few patches were heavily criticized. The main complaint you saw everywhere was that they were dry. They were full of, let's just say, goofy casual events. I mean, the photo taking was nice, right? But there's a lot of mini games, things that didn't involve combat, things that didn't use the characters you spent all this time building. So the core combat community felt completely ignored. They were, as many people put it, starved for something to actually do. So what happened? Kuro heard this, they heard it loud and clear, and in 2.8 they responded. We are getting a new boss for the hologram gauntlet and 2 new events that are focused on combat. The combat players are finally getting fed. And speaking of that new boss, the false sovereign, people are already saying it's going to be a pain in the ass, but what is really interesting is that it is Havoc resistant boss. The new 5-star 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗆𝗵𝘁 is a Havoc unit, and honestly, I see this as kind of a positive. It is a quiet sign that Kuro isn't just designing content that you can only beat by pulling the newest, shiniest character. It is a good thing for the game's health. But this brings us back to the reaction. As some creators pointed out, when a community is that starved for content, they will praise any combat event you give them. It could be a chocolate-shaped poo, and a lot of players will still be happy just because it's something. This isn't a very healthy state for a game to be in. It means the developer is getting applause just for meeting the bare minimum, not for actual innovation. 𝗖𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏 had the perfect analogy for this. He called it the burger metaphor. He said Kuro's restaurant, the game, was getting complaints that they didn't have enough chicken sandwiches, which are the combat events. So in response, they took 90% of the burgers, the casual events, off the menu. They listened, but they overcorrected. They just swung the pendulum all the way to the other extreme. And that is the signal. It shows the developer is highly reactive. They listen, they respond, which is good, but they don't seem to be proactive. They should be planning ahead, not just reacting to the last complaint. It shows that they're still struggling to find a stable, balanced patch cycle, a way to serve both of their audiences, the combat focused and the casual players at the same time. Which brings us to the final takeaway. What does this all mean? That this entire 2.8 discourse, it was never a simple W or L debate. It wasn't really about the patch being good or bad. It was just a collection of different value systems talking past each other. This broadcast in the end just acted as a mirror. It reflected exactly what Kuro Games is as a developer right now, both the good and the bad. On one hand, it confirmed that this is a developer with world-class technical skill. It confirmed that they have genuine, almost aggressive willingness to listen to feedback, and more importantly, to execute on that feedback. At the same time, that mirror confirmed that they are still struggling. They are struggling with effective hype management. That is the missing 3.0 teaser, and they're still struggling with what players feel is player-friendly monetization. That is the pooling banner. This all leaves one real question for the community. What do you personally define as a good patch? Is it the technical behind-the-scenes quality of life fixes, the stuff that improves the long-term health of the game, or is it the other stuff, the forward-looking hype, the generous rewards, and just the feeling of a balanced, consistent content schedule? Let me know what you think, but that is all from me, 𝗖𝗍𝗆𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers!